Told you we always been ready. I don't need people that's petty, that weigh on me heavy while I'm being steady. I need a record with Felly. We get it bouncing like Betty's, I feel like I'm Nelly. Don't bring the beef like a deli. It's leaving I levy, no sleeping on me like I'm Freddy. Chris Breeze, how I do, hit him with the moves. Left hand step back, ballin' like I'm Coos. All faith, God's plan, you just gotta choose. God slaps, nothing left to prove. Y'all gotta leave me alone. Lately I've been in my zone. Told them no cap like I fitted, but lately the flows have been straight off the dome. I feel like I'm MVP, like my name Patty Mahomes. If it ain't about money, don't hit up my phone, cause lately I've been in my zone.
Hello, welcome to the Cowboy Show, hosted by Ben Carey and Nick Gronerad, combining expert human opinions with cutting-edge simulation models to help you arrive at the best picks each week. Inside Edge Community. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to today's stream. As you can tell, it is just me today. Ben has been in Vegas for the past couple of weeks for a conference, purely business, all work, no play, of course. But he was supposed to be here today. His flight got delayed a little bit. So he is still at the airport waiting to board his flight. So it's just going to be me today. That being said, the fact that Ben is not here does not mean we don't have a good game coming up. We've got the Rams and the Seahawks. T. Cherry says, y'all used to never be on screen after the timer, but now that there's a countdown, y'all always on time. Yeah, you're completely right, actually. Now we make sure to be 100% ready to go once the timer's done. It like ruins the hype from the intro if you're not ready to go at that moment. So 100%, you're completely right, and that's not an accident. So lines in this game. Let me readjust this. So Seahawks 2.5 point underdogs at home. Total set at 53.5. So these teams were a quarter of the way through the season. So I think it's okay to start talking a little bit about ATS records and over-under records. Not that it's necessarily a super useful thing, but a thing that we can talk about. Lagging, I think that the lag is on your end. You should, if you're having issues, lower the stream quality on your end. I am 99.9% sure that I am not lagging on my end. So both of these teams come in at 2-2 against the spread. As far as over-unders are concerned, though, it's a different story. So the Rams are the only team in the league that have had all 4 of their games go over so far. The Seahawks, on the other side, are 1 over and 3 unders. Divisional matchup. I think that this is the first time that these teams have played this year. They played each other 3 times last year, including a game in the playoffs. So the game in Seattle last year was a 32-20. No, not a 32-20. A 20-9 win for the Seahawks. The game in LA last year was a 23-16 win for the Rams. And then they played for a third time in the playoffs in Seattle. And that was a 20-30 loss for the Seahawks. In his entire career, Russell Wilson 8-10 against the Rams. Against the Rams. Matthew Stafford has probably played the Seahawks a couple times. I haven't looked up his record. It's probably bad because he was with the Lions for a long time. But this Rams team with Stafford at the helm they look really good. 3-1. Lost last week against Arizona, but that's a solid team. They have a win against Chicago, a win against Indy, and a win against Tampa. Seattle, 2-2. 3 road games, 2-1 on the road, wins over Indianapolis and San Francisco lost to Minnesota, and then a loss at home in their only home game of the season so far against Tennessee. So the model has this one at about a 27-24 win for Seattle. So about a 5.5 point discrepancy between what the model is saying and what Vegas is saying as far as the spread is concerned. It has Seattle winning outright. I think that this is a fairly popular upset pick, at least in some circles. There's a lot of talk like about Russell Wilson at home, prime time, and then Ben came in with a post about some trend that some guy posted that goes against that. But I think that a lot of people are feeling pretty confident about this one, but in both directions. I like Seattle here quite a bit. I think Ben was with me in liking Seattle. It wasn't to the point where we were going to give it out as an official pick, but definitely a lean on Seattle. I've seen some people in the Discord also on the Rams, so let me know in the chat what you guys think about this one. Are you on Seattle or are you on LA? As far as the total is concerned, since the model has us at 24-27, it's a total of about 51, so under by about 2.5 points. This total was at 54 not too long ago. Although I'm showing 53.5s, I think everywhere at the moment. The only discrepancy across these books, at least, is that Superbook has this at Rams -3 now. I think this opened up at Seahawks -1 and has moved all the way to Rams -3. Jeff says coin toss. Yeah, it does feel a little coin tossy. It's two really good teams. The Rams, I would say, are probably slightly better. I think that the Seahawks do have an advantage at home, though. So I like Seattle plus the points. D. Barnes says Seattle and under. I agree. I think that this is a good under spot. My reasoning for the under, I'll get into a little bit more as we start talking about props. But I think I like this under as opposed to the over. CCal says 53.5. I don't know if you're saying over 53.5 or under 53.5 or exactly 53.5. That would be pretty unlikely. And Manzan Scan says Rams -3, baby. It's totally possible. I mean, if you can grab this 2.5 instead, that would be much better. I see 2.5 on PointsBet, 2.5 on DraftKings. It's probably 2.5 in both in a lot of spots because it takes a lot of money to move a 2.5 to a 3. It says Russ has a losing record against 4 teams. Rams are one of them. Metcalf gets locked up by Ramsey under and the Rams spread. I'm with you on some of that at least. Indisputable that Russ has a losing record against the Rams. Told you it's 53.5. Your shit's slow. It said 53.5 the entire time. I'm not entirely sure what you mean. But anyways, I'm going to go ahead and move into the player prop market. Can't really have a discussion about... I mean, I can discuss the game with you guys, but without Ben, can't get as into it. Empre says Trent is on Seattle. Gotta fade him. I feel like I've been on the same side as Trent on a lot of stuff recently. So I don't know if that's good or bad. Also, CCal, if you're lagging, lower the stream quality. My end, the output of the stream is good. If your internet can't handle the HD 1080p, then you can lower the stream quality on your end. He said it's is that like his new favorite word? Is Trent saying surgical the equivalent of me saying electric? I think it might be. And I hope that's not a bad thing. So passing yardage props. We've got Matthew Stafford over under 304.5. Russell Wilson over under 271.5. I'm going to take a look at where these numbers are on some other books. On DraftKings, we've got Russ at 273.5, Stafford 303.5, and then on Superbook, 304.5 for Stafford, so 303.5, 304.5, and then Russ is looking between 271.5, 273.5. So I'll start out with Russell Wilson because this is the one that I have a little bit of a stronger opinion on. And I lean towards the under for Russell Wilson passing yards. So the Rams this year have played 4 games, like everybody has, against the Bears. The 2 quarterbacks on the Bears combined for 216 yards on 40 pass attempts. Carson Wentz and Jacob Eason on the Colts combined 272 on 36 pass attempts. 247 of that was Wentz, 25 was Eason. Tom Brady, the Buccaneers completely abandoned the run in that game. Brady threw the ball 55 times, racked up 432 yards. I don't think Russ is going to be anywhere near that. And then Kyler Murray, 268 on 32 attempts last week. So just based on what other quarterbacks have done, that's 3 of 4 under this number passing against the Rams. Completely aside from that, when was the last time that Russell Wilson went over this number passing against the Seahawks? And for those of you that don't have his complete game log against Seattle up on another screen like I do, the answer to that question is Week 16 of 2015. That was the last time that Russell Wilson passed for over 270 yards against the Rams. And he's only done it twice in his whole career, in 18 games. That was a 289 in Week 16, 2015, and a 313 Week 7, 2014. All of the other 16 games plus a 17th playoff game last year against the Rams, Russ has been under this number passing against the Rams. So why is that? I mean, the pass attempts have been a little bit low. And Alex Collins being the running back, Chris Carson being out might help to inflate Russell Wilson's pass attempts a little bit, which then in turn helps the passing yards. But I think like what Manzan Scan was saying earlier, I think a lot of it has to do with the defensive backs that the Rams have. You can't really have a lot of success throwing the ball downfield against the Rams secondary, especially against Jalen Ramsey. With the Seahawks, DK Metcalf is the real big deep threat, and he doesn't have a lot of success against Ramsey. So I think it's going to be a run-oriented attack. I don't think that the Carson loss is that big of a deal for Seattle. I think that Alex Collins and to a lesser extent Travis Horner are going to have success running the ball still. Plus Russell Wilson himself might also pick up some of that running slack. But I just think that regardless of where this is, I mean, it's looking like 273.5 is the number in most spots. I think it's 20 yards too high. So despite the model saying 276.9 for Russ, I think that he settles in the 250 range. Stafford, on the other hand, I also think that this one's a little bit too high, if I'm being honest. And D. Barnes said the same thing for basically the same reason. I think they're good. He said, I think they're going to run the shit out of Henderson, and I could not agree more. The Rams' passing attack has got a lot of attention, but they actually run the ball quite a bit. I think across all 4 games that they've played, it's been between 17 and 20 carries per game by the running backs on the team. Plus, Stafford himself actually has 15 carries, although I think that a lot of that is kneel downs. Probably about half of that is just him kneeling the ball. Oh, yeah, Teacher asked about... I was going to get to Collins in a second. I didn't know off the top of my head because that news came out so recently. I was done looking at rushing props when that came out. I had a lot to say about Chris Carson. But then injuries happened. But yeah, I think that Stafford goes under this by about 20 yards as well. I think it's about 20 yards too high, I should say. I think both teams are going to look to run the ball a little bit more than the air quotes public expects. I think that slows the tempo down. I think that helps out the under. And I think that helps out both of these passing yardage unders. And yeah, McVay from the Shanahan tree definitely loves to get the run game going to set stuff up downfield. Yeah, totally. I mean, the passing attack, again, with McVay forever has been the thing that gets a lot of attention. But the running backs have a lot of success, whether it's Henderson, whether it was Michelle in the one game that he started earlier this year, Cam Akers last year, Todd Gurley in years past. Running backs in this offense have a lot of success, and you see a lot of flashy passing plays, but not necessarily the passing volume to consistently hit a number like this. Also, just to make the same comparison for Stafford that I did with Russ. So quarterbacks against Seattle this year have actually gone over this number 3 out of 4 times. You had Carson Wentz throw for 251. You had Ryan Tannehill throw for 347. Kirk Cousins for 323. And Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo combine for 322. So I think there's just part of me that feels like this number is a little bit high. The 303, despite all that. Although I certainly feel a little bit more confident in Russ than I do in Stafford. So next up, let's take a look at some rushing props. Do you like Rams minus 2.5? No, I do not. I lean Seattle plus the points. So rushing props. On Seattle's side, we have Alex Collins over under 52.5. Russell Wilson over under 25.5. Travis Homer over under 11.5. And the model is not going to be a whole lot of use here because it's got Chris Carson and not Alex Collins as the starting running back. So I'm not going to look at that. But I think that Collins' number, and to a lesser extent, potentially also Homer's number, have quite a bit of value here. So the Rams' rush defense has been kind of quietly suspect this year, I would say. So David Montgomery in week 1, 16 carries, 108 yards against the Rams. Week 2, Jonathan Taylor, 15 carries for 51 yards against the Rams. Week 3, like I said, the Buccaneers, they got down and they completely abandoned the run. They only ran the ball 9 times with their backs the whole game. And last week, James Conner, 18 for 50, and Chase Edmonds, 12 for 120. So we've seen a lot of success for running backs running the ball against the Rams. So I think that this 52.5 for Collins and also the 11.5 for Homer are both pretty good looks. I will take a look at what the model said for Carson run yards wise. This is not updating. That's a little weird. Let's go like this. Okay, so the widget on the screen is not updating. Let me go like this and see if that helps. There we go. Okay, so it had Chris Carson about 78 yards on 18 carries. And is Collins going to be as effective as that? Probably not. But, I mean, he doesn't need to be that efficient. If the volume is there, which it should be, win or lose for Seattle, honestly, I think the volume should be there. I think Carson will be good. Or not Carson, Collins will be good to hit his 52.5. And then the model had about 5 carries for 20 yards for the number 2. So I honestly think that the homer number is maybe even a little bit better. Let me take a look at what they did last week. I mean, so Carson wasn't out last week, although I do think he kind of left the game early, if I'm not mistaken. Because, I mean, Collins had 10 carries for 46 yards last week. Yeah, DJ Dallas, probably not going to be in the game plan. I mean, Homer's been the number 3 guy who's been active and was even the number 2 in week 3, I think it was, when Alex Collins was out. But they, I think, are comfortable giving the number 2 back a couple carries as long as they're not abandoning the run, which I don't think they will because it's an effective game plan against the Rams. So I think that both of these guys' overs are good looks. Russ's rushing yards at 25.5. I think that I want to stay away from that. Russell Wilson, I mean, he's just not, I don't think, running the ball quite as much this year. I mean, his maximum carry number across the first 4 weeks is only 5 carries and only 15 total. He's gone under this number 3 out of 4 weeks. And the 1 week he hit it, he only had 26, so only over by about half a yard. He's actually had so few carries that the model is kind of saying he's not going to run the ball at all. So we don't really have the model to go off of for Russ. But yeah, I think if I were to make a play on Russell Wilson rushing yards, I'd go under. But I don't really want to do that. It's just a lean, not something I'm going to have any money on. I think in like the 15-yard range is where I'd put him at. On the Rams side of things, rushing yardage-wise, we've got Darrell Henderson over under 68.5, Matt Stafford over under 5.5, and Sony Michel over under 18.5. So, like I was talking about a little bit earlier, I really like this Henderson over. And that's because the Rams, they like to run the ball. Despite it having a reputation as being a high-flying passing attack, they do run the ball quite a bit. So model only has Henderson at 45.9, but part of that is because it's giving a lot of carries to Michel, because Michel was the starter for a game when Henderson was out, so it's got the carry distribution wrong between the two. But it's got Henderson at a little bit over 4 yards per carry. I think Henderson gets 15 carries, and I think that 4 yards per carry is actually a conservative estimate for what Henderson's going to get against the Rams, or against the Seahawks. So running backs this year against Seattle have had a lot of success. Week 1, Jonathan Taylor. Again, Taylor has been kind of the weak link, surprisingly, against both of these run defenses. But Taylor had 17 for 56, which is not great. In week 2, Derrick Henry destroyed Seattle. 35 carries, 182 yards. Week 3, Alexander Mattison, 26 carries, 112 yards. And week 4, Trey Sermon, 19 carries for 89 yards. Austin says, Nick, you're going to need a hot tub stream soon. Doubtful. 100 gifted subs for a hot tub stream. Actually, no. I still no. For anybody who doesn't use Twitch a whole lot aside from sports betting content, it's been like a thing that people do. Like just you stream in a hot tub. And if you're an attractive woman, what that does is that gets a lot of people to give you a lot of money. If you're me, it would probably just make people turn the stream off. And yeah, Synchronicity, aka Ben's dad. Seahawks rush defense 25th in the league. Yeah, running backs have had a lot of success, and teams have run the ball a lot against Seattle. So I mean, the carry numbers: 26 carries from the Colts, 36 from the Titans, 33 from the Vikings, 21 from the Niners. Carries from running backs against Seattle. Anyone on his bet site, SG? I'm not entirely sure what you're saying. Oh, you got ADD? Okay. I got you. All right. But yeah, I think at 68.5, the Henderson number is pretty good. Stafford at 5.5. I don't really want to touch it. Again, he's got 15 carries this year, but it's been a lot of kneel downs. I think even if he does have a scramble, it could potentially get killed by kneels if the Rams end up winning. And Sony Michel at 18.5. I probably actually lean under for Michel. In the games where Henderson and Michel are both healthy, which was week 1 against Chicago and not week 3. Was it last week? Yeah, I guess it was last week against Arizona when Henderson and Michel were healthy. The carry distribution has been 16 for Henderson and 1 for Michel in week 1. And then in week 2, 14 from Henderson, 3 from Michel. So I don't think that Michel is going to get a lot of carries. I think it's going to be almost entirely Henderson. It's been the Rams' MO. You just have one guy and get him going. And then he'll be out there on running downs. He'll be out there on passing downs. I expect Henderson to be a real proper 3-down back this week. So Michel at 18.5, lean under. On to receiving yards. So on Seattle's side, we have Alex Collins at 13.5. Colby Parkinson. I honestly have no idea who Colby Parkinson is. I usually at least know who these guys are, but I honestly couldn't tell you what team Colby Parkinson plays for. SGP allowed, definitely under. Your book doesn't have it. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to disallow SGPs. That's for sure. We got so Collins at 13.5 receiving yards. DK Metcalf 72.5. Freddie Swain 20.5. Travis Homer 14.5. Tyler Lockett 71.5. Will Dissly 22.5. So I have some thoughts on a couple of these numbers. The first one, I think that the DK Metcalf number is too high at 72.5. So Metcalf should be getting the Jalen Ramsey treatment tonight. Metcalf has played 5 games against the Rams, and I believe he's been in shadow coverage from Jalen Ramsey in all of these games. 2 catches for 44 yards on 3 targets. 6 catches on 6 targets for 78 yards. So that's an over on this number. 2 catches on 4 targets for 28 yards. 6 catches on 8 targets for 59 yards. And then in the playoff game, 5 catches on 11 targets for 96 yards. So from that perspective, he's gone under 3 out of 5 times against Ramsey. But I think that the playoff game was a big outlier. It was a win or die game in the playoffs for Seattle. He got 11 targets. I don't think that he's going to get anywhere close to 11 targets today against Jalen Ramsey. So I lean under for Metcalf. The running backs, I honestly don't really have any thoughts on them. I mean, the news was too late as far as the fact that it was going to be Collins. So I didn't look at Collins or Homer rushing numbers. A guy who's over, I like a little bit actually, is Freddie Swain at 20.5. So in the games last year, I closed the tab where I had all that up. But Freddie Swain, I think, has received a decent amount of looks against the Rams. So with Metcalf being covered up by Ramsey, I think Lockett at 70.5 or 71.5. I think that number is fair. With Swain, though, and to a lesser extent, Will Dissly, both of these guys, these secondary options, I think are the spots to look if you're looking for a Seahawks receiving over. So wide receivers against Seattle, or against, against the Rams. Let me pull up the right thing. You've seen the depth receiving options have quite a bit of success. So against the Bears in week 1, highest guy only had 45 yards, but you had four wide receivers at 19 or more yards. Against the Colts in week 2, Michael Pittman had a huge game with 123. Pascal had 38. It was not really a game for the receivers for the Colts. Against the Bucks, you saw that number 3 option, Tyler Johnson, 3 catches on 6 targets for 63 yards, in addition to good games from Godwin and Evans. Again, though, Buccaneers threw the ball 55 times in that game. And against the Cardinals last week, you saw 2 guys at 67 in AJ Green and DeAndre Hopkins, and then Rondale Moore at 28. Again, that number 3 receiver, who I think is basically in the Freddie Swain role here. So I think that guy against the Rams, target volume is going to be elevated just because Metcalf is going to be locked down by Ramsey. And I think that 20.5 is a good number there. On the Rams side of things, we have Cooper Kupp over under 86.5. That's a huge number. Darrell Henderson over under 20.5. Deshaun Jackson over under 19.5. Robert Woods over under 60.5. Tyler Higbee over under 39.5. Van Jefferson over under 44.5. So first observation, that's a lot of dudes. That's a lot of mouths to feed. And I don't really like taking receiving overs in that situation. But what I think is interesting, wide receivers against Seattle, it's typically been one guy has a huge game and everybody else kind of sucks. So last week against San Francisco, we saw Deebo Samuel collect 13 of the 24 targets to receivers. Turn that into 8 catches for 156 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Vikings in week 3, we saw Justin Jefferson collect 11 of the 22 targets. Again, a guy with half the target share. Turn that into 9 catches for 118 yards and a touchdown. Against Tennessee in week 2, we saw Julio Jones collect 8 targets, 6 catches, 128 yards. Next leading receiver, only 43. And next leading receivers for those other games, by the way, Vikings, after Jefferson's 118, Thielen only had 50. For San Francisco, after Debo's 156, next guy was Mohamed Sanu with 35. And for the Titans, after Julio Jones's 128, next guy was A.J. Brown with 43. So it's been one guy, Julio Jones, Justin Jefferson, Deebo Samuel, that number 1 guy who's had a massive game. And these are all number 1 guys on the outside. And then everybody else has been kind of shut out. So the guy that I'm looking at here, and Ben was talking to me about this earlier. I gave him a little shit for it because he was really high on him a couple weeks ago, and then it didn't pan out at all. But I like Robert Woods in this game as well. Ben told me to tell you that he likes Robert Woods, and I'm going to tell you that I like Robert Woods as well. At 60.5. I think that this is my favorite receiving number on the Rams side of things, as far as wide receivers are concerned, at least. Tight end wise, I think that 39.5 for Higbee it's a little bit too high for me to like an over. And the other guy that I like actually is Darrell Henderson again, over 20.5. So running backs against Seattle, and not only have they had a lot of success on the ground, but they've also had a ton of success through the air. Colts running backs Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor combined 12 catches for 108 yards. Titans Derrick Henry, Jeremy McNichols combined 9 catches for 81 yards. Vikings backs in that game, that was Alex Madison, Amir Abdullah. I guess Madison had all the target volume, but 6 catches for 59 yards. And then the Niners, last week, Trey Sermon, the lead back, didn't get any targets, but Kyle Juszczyk, the fullback, 4 catches for 41 yards. So we've seen a back go over 40 yards every week against Seattle. And total on the season, we've actually seen 6 different running backs, both Taylor and Hines in week 1, both Henry and McNichols in week 2. 6 backs total go over this 20.5 number receiving against Seattle. And again, Sony Michel is not going to be out there, and if he's out there, it's certainly not going to be to catch the ball. In New England, that was never his role. In LA, that hasn't been his role. So I really like this Henderson over 20.5. That's my favorite receiving play. Probably overall for the Rams. So what I actually like, because I like these Henderson, the rushing over, and the receiving over, there is this rushing plus receiving for Henderson. It's at 92.5. So we're paying a little bit extra. We have to take this number at a couple extra yards than just adding up the rushing and receiving props. So again, the receiving for Henderson is at 20.5. The rushing for Henderson is at 68.5. Adding those up, you get 89 yards. So we have to pay an extra 3.5 yards to get the rushing plus receiving for Henderson at 92.5. But because I like the rushing over and the receiving over for Henderson, I think that this rushing plus receiving over is a play that I love. Because it could be it all happens on the ground, or he could, for whatever reason, get 10 targets and not a lot of carries, because that's successful. So you're by taking this, you're paying 3 yards for type of touch insurance, basically, is the way that I think about it. So I really like that play. Touchdown props, which I guess I'll talk about, even though I hate them. I'm actually going to move over to PointsBet because I like their interface a little bit better for this. But anytime touchdown scorers, Cooper Kupp, wide receiver, at -130. Darrell Henderson, -110. Tyler Lockett, Alex Collins, both at +100. DK Metcalf +105. A lot of touchdown scorers with odds in that like -130 to +110 range. 5 guys there. The model had Chris Carson as the number 1 guy to score. Probably give a lot of that to Collins. So I think Collins at +100 would probably be my favorite guy in this situation. Honestly, maybe Robert Woods as another guy that I like. And of course, since I like him to be so involved in the game, Darrell Henderson as another touchdown scorer that I like. So that's all I got. If anybody's got anything else to talk about, let me know. I'm not going to sit here and ramble on any more than I have to. Although, I will say that my favorite bet for tonight is going to be that Darrell Henderson rushing plus receiving over 92.5 yards. And if Ben were here, he would tell you that his favorite prop tonight was Robert Woods over 60.5 receiving yards. And that's another one that I do like a lot. So if anybody's, again, has anything that you want to talk about that you might have missed or that I didn't touch on, let me know in the chat. And if not, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. All right, not seeing anything pop up, so I'm going to call it there. Thank you all, as always, for being here for the stream. Appreciate it very much. Ben will be back from Vegas at some point tonight. Not entirely sure when. Have to talk to him about stream schedules with college football. There's been some issues the last couple of weeks with the Friday and Saturday streams, so not exactly sure what the game plan is for those. But certainly, NFL-wise, Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Mountain Time, 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Ben and I will both be here for a full rundown of the entire 14-game Sunday slate. And then the next day on Monday, this same picks and props segment, but again, with Ben here for the Colts-Ravens Monday night game. So thank you all again for being here. Good luck with the bets tonight, and I will see you next time.